A wonderful morning to everyone who has joined today. From Manage Engine family, we would like to extend our warm welcome and sincere thanks to all of our customers, partners, and users who are interested in our solutions. Endpoint management and security is one of the main focus areas of Manage Engine. In today's session, we will be covering patch management. Let me introduce myself. My name is Bharani, and I'm a product specialist with Manage Engine for over 6 years. I take care of the endpoint management products, including Desktop Central. I'm a seasoned technical support engineer, assisting customers in their implementation, consultation, and troubleshooting in case of any challenges. In today's webinar, we will be focusing on endpoint management solutions, which has different product portfolios and a manage engine and security. I would like to give a brief note about the products which are present under endpoint and security. We have tools like Vulnerability Manager Plus, Patch Manager Plus, Browser Security Plus, Device Control Plus, OS Deployer, and Mobile Device Manager. These products take care of their own native requirements as a standalone tool. But Desktop Central is a complete unified endpoint management tool that has all these features under a single roof. I would say Desktop Central is a suite of all these products supported under one web console. Apart from this, if you have a major requirement for managing only third-party application, I would recommend Patch Connect Plus. Patch Connect Plus is a simple component that can be installed in SCCM to deploy the third-party patches. As you can see, we offer a wide variety of products to handle all of your endpoint management and security concerns. To know more about our products, you shall also visit the website that's mentioned on the slide. Once again, I welcome you all to the Desktop Central training program. In today's session, we will be specifically discussing on handling patch management in the digital workspace or patch management with respect to the distributed workforce. Let us take a look on the overview of our training. We are on week 1 of series 6, which is patch management. This is one of the modules of our endpoint management and security suite. All these sessions will be recorded and made available in the below mentioned website. All the registered participants will receive an email with the recorded training video. If you're interested in the upcoming training sessions, please use the same link for the registration. You can also attend our free training series and claim your certificate on completing the series of courses. Patch management for distributed workforce. Before I proceed with the training, I would like to take you through the agenda for the day. We will have an overview of what patch management and its features are, followed by the architecture in understanding how Desktop Central works. We will be discussing about the effective ways in which you shall manage endpoints that are distributed in various geographical locations. We will also be discussing about the strategic planning in managing these endpoints and network access control. Concluding the session with most frequently asked questions with answers. During the last webinar, most of our customers have raised some valuable questions. We have collated those information and added them into our today's questionnaire session, and I'll be explaining them to you in detail. During the training, if you come across any questions, feel free to use the chat option to chat with our expert team. We will also collect all the questions raised during the session, and they will be published for the larger audience. We will be using Desktop Central Server Build version 10.1.0 2127.5 for this presentation, and this application supports all the browsers. Across the globe, we have started embracing the new normal. And for an IT administrator, the new normal now means a distributed workforce. Managing and securing devices across the distributed workforce can come with quite a lot of challenges. Let us consider a live example to understand the distributed workforce scenario better. It would be easier for us to correlate these with examples as we suggest multiple methods to manage and patch the endpoints remotely. John is one of a loyal customer who is managing a chain of hotels in multiple locations and managing 10,000 computers in his network, which is spread across the globe. As we can see from the picture, each remote office comes with its own requirement in terms of the number of endpoints managed, bandwidth, and the mode of connectivity. So the IT team now has to figure out the ways to test the newly released patches, deploy it periodically, and monitor all the endpoints. Let's take a look at how John can handle both the situation with the features that are available in Desktop Center. There are two types of users that John will have to cater to. One is users who are connecting to the Desktop Central server via VPN, and the users who are connecting over the internet. Apart from the roaming users, John should also revise a strategy to get the back to office machines up and running. Now that the offices are opening up in some parts of the world, IT admins need to check the complaint status of those machines that are getting back to the office. We will be discussing more about this in the upcoming slides. Our organization has completely adopted remote and distributed work culture. This can be challenging for IT admins who now have to consider various factors before initiating a patch task for the distributed workforce. Some of those factors are bandwidth constraint, keeping the end users informed about the patch task, time constraint while applying these patches, reboot schedule, and troubleshooting. We will be looking on how we can include these factors in managing and securing the distributed workforce. But before that, let us get a brief understanding on what Desktop Central is. Desktop Central is a unified endpoint management solution that ensures all your endpoints are secure and enables the user to use them effectively for business. A popular research analyst called Forrester defines UEM as follows: a product that can provide a centralized policy engine for managing and securing employee laptops and mobile phones from a single console. In unified endpoint management, you can manage endpoints in a traditional IT management fashion. This includes patch management, application management, configuration deployments, OS deployment, tools for troubleshooting, and automating the day-to-day routine management activities. Similarly, endpoints can also be managed with modern management. All the modern operating systems support modern management. It supports features like geo-tracking, geo-fencing for your laptops, and distributing the store applications, profile distribution to enforce restrictions, operating system reset, and recovery. Hence, with Desktop Central Unified Endpoint Management Edition, we get a complete integration of client management capabilities combined with mobile device management and modern management for Windows and Mac. You can handle all of your endpoints right from device provisioning towards the vulnerability assessments, ensuring its security and supports analytical data and comprehensive reports. Customers and users have also recognized Desktop Central as a wholesome UEM solution, and it has been awarded accolades with the same under various forums. So with Desktop Central Unified Endpoint Management Solution, you will be able to manage desktops, laptops, mobile phones and tablets, servers, point of sale devices, and browsers from a single console. We support three operating system platforms for now: Windows, Mac, and Linux. Here is the complete list of operating systems that is supported by Desktop Central. The application server runs on the Windows platform, but you can manage the endpoints with Windows, Mac, or Linux operating systems. In case if you have any questions, you can reach out to the support by referring the email address that's mentioned below. Desktop Central Architecture. Let's have a look at the Desktop Central Architecture, mainly for the benefit of the attendees who are not familiar with the product. Desktop Central is an on-prem solution and it supports client-server model application. You can have Desktop Central hosted in any one of the supported Windows operating systems. The architecture talks about how you can manage the computers in the local area network and wide area network. When it comes to wide area network, you can manage endpoints from different remote locations from one single console. They can connect either over the internet or using a VPN or MPLS connection. For the machines that are present in remote office that are connected over a direct internet connection, you can use a component called Secure Gateway Server that bridges the agent traffic to the Desktop Central server securely when they are connected over the internet. When it comes to remote locations, we have a component called Distribution Server, which is used to throttle bandwidth for the data traffic between the Desktop Central server and the remote location. Desktop Central is currently available as a native cloud solution. You shall sign up for the below URL to start accessing the Desktop Central Cloud Edition. As Desktop Central users are aware, patch management comes as a feature in Desktop Central. If you require patch management as a separate product, we have a standalone tool called Patch Manager Plus, which is available in both on-premises and cloud solution. Now, we are in the actual core of the patch management overview, and this supports 1,000 plus applications in Desktop Central, which includes Windows, Mac, Linux, and we also support 500 plus third-party applications as well. Based on the use cases, a lot of customers had questions on which updates are supported by the Desktop Central Patch Management. Here is the description. We support security-only updates, monthly rollups, cumulative updates, feature pack updates, optional updates, definition updates, and the automatic handling of service stack updates. We do support the extended security updates of live operating systems like Windows 7, 2008 servers, 2008 R2 servers, provided if they have an extended support license. When it comes to server patching, we support patching for Windows servers and Linux servers with security and non-security updates. As you all know, the latest feature pack that is currently on most of the machines is Windows 10 21H1. So once a feature pack is released, service or support will be available for 18 to 30 months based on the edition of Windows 10 that you're running. With Desktop Central Unified Endpoint Management, you will be able to automate all these feature pack deployments. We will be seeing more information about the feature pack deployments as we proceed further. Here is the full approach recommended by Microsoft for patch management. As you all know, second Tuesday of every month is considered to be the Patch Tuesday for Microsoft. During this time, Microsoft releases a lot of security and non-security updates. Most of the customers considers only the security updates and they tend to ignore the non-security ones. As you can see in the image, this is how Microsoft tests and deploy the patches in their test environment. We would always recommend you to give high priority for the critical security updates, but at least on the third or the fourth week, we recommend you to deploy all the other required patches to achieve the fully patched recommended state of Microsoft. So this will ensure that your environment is kept healthy. Let's also have an overview of the patch management architecture. So whenever a patch is released, it is made available in the vendor sites. Our crawler team repeatedly probes the internet to draw the vulnerability information from the vendor sites. Once the download is completed, the patches will be tested in our environment. Compatibility and applicability checks are also being done, post which it is published to the central patch repository. Now, the desktop central server running in your environment subscribes to the central patch repository to download the vulnerability database periodically. Once the process is completed, the client machines will be automatically scanned in order to identify the missing patches. After identifying the missing patches, Desktop Central Server will directly download the required patches from the vendor sites. And the managed computers, based on from where they are connected, they are now allowed to download the patches from the Desktop Central Server or from the internet directly. However, you will have controls to define the deployment date and time. Now let's take a look at how the endpoints can be managed in a distributed workforce. Patching roaming users. There are two ways in which these users can be managed. One is through a secure gateway server. The domain users can connect to the secure gateway server. Thereby, you don't have to expose the desktop central server to the internet. So all the communication between the agent and the desktop central server will happen through the secure gateway server. I'm going to take you to the web console of Desktop Central and show you how this configuration can be done. So you need to navigate to the administrative section. Under admin, you have NAT settings, and that's where you will configure the public FQDN. And once it is done, you will have to install the secure gateway server. So you will be allocating a dedicated mission. So once the secure gateway server is installed, the roaming machines will now communicate with the public FQDN that you have configured. And this will ensure that the roaming machines are posting every information to the desktop central server. So this will allow the desktop central to cater the needs of roaming users through a secure gateway server. Let's go back to the presentation. Now, the second category of users are work from your home users who needs a direct download to be implemented. So Desktop Central offers a feature called direct download, and this is to conserve bandwidth for the above mentioned VPN users. The agent can now directly download the patches from the internet without any dependency of the Desktop Central server. And there are a couple of prerequisites to enable the direct download. First, you need to ensure you're running the latest build version of Desktop Central And you should also apply a simple configuration to allow the VPN connected work from home endpoints to download the required patches directly. Let me show you how this configuration is done. Okay, back to the web console. So you will have to navigate to threats and patches, deployment, and go to disable automatic updates. And we have a default configuration named enable agent to directly download the patches. So you can create a configuration over here and choose the group of missions to which you need to enable the direct download. This can be done to a specific group of computers or the entire domain, and you can push this configuration by deploying it immediately. So once this is deployed, the agents will start to download the patches directly from the internet. Back to Office. There are a few factors that an administrator should look for when the missions are back to Office. Quarantining the non-compliant missions and updating the unpatched applications, deploying feature packs, and deploying updates based on the user's availability. So we are going to discuss this situation one by one. Previously, we have seen how to manage the endpoints during the work from home scenario, and now we shall create a patch routine for back to office missions. The first objective will be enabling network access control for the non-compliant missions and identifying critical applications to patch them in priority. Post which, we will be creating a system restore point for all the work from home missions. In case of experiencing any challenges through patch deployment task, we are safe to restore the backup. And that's the primary objective of creating a system restore point. The next objective is to keep the end users informed about the patching schedule so that they can be prepared. And then we will be testing the newly released patches on our pilot groups before deploying them to the bulk computers. And based on the testing results, we will be approving the patches and deploying them to highly vulnerable systems to generate a report based on the activities. Let's take a look at them one by one. Here is the workflow of network access control. So network access control is used to tighten the network security by restricting the endpoints that does not satisfy the compliant requirement for an organization. This will enable the system administrator to allow or restrict the access to organization's network for the endpoint that fails to confirm the compliance settings defined by the administrator. As you take a look at the workflow, the administrator will create a policy that defines the complaint status. So if any system is found to be non-compliant, the network resource of those systems gets restricted automatically. By default, the compliance status of all the systems are checked during every refresh cycle. We will be discussing about the refresh cycle in the upcoming sessions. And the compliance status of the quarantined missions to which compliance policies has been deployed will be checked every time when there is an IP change. That is, whenever a mission is reconnected to the network, the complaint is automatically rechecked. And let me show you how this can be done. We have even published an article that has the zip file on how to install and run the NAC module. So I've already downloaded it, and this is how the quarantine policy generator looks like. So here you will be able to allocate or search a specific keyword based on softwares or based on services. You can also set the domain or IP addresses that you wish to allow during the quarantine missions. For example, if a software exists or if a software does not exist, you will be able to block all the networks or block a specific intranet range. So we are defining a custom check before the mission enters our network. So you will be creating this policy, and this policy will be deployed to all the client missions as a configuration. Back to the presentation. And here is a screenshot on how this deployment zips looks like. So if you see, there is a test on a software, if it exists or not, and there is also a test on the service to see if that exists or not. So if both the softwares and services exists, we are going to block all the network access for that mission. And this will be created as a policy, and you will be deploying it as a configuration. Creating a system restore points for back to office missions. So as mentioned earlier, in case of any issues during the patch deployment task, we will be safer to use this restore point in Desktop Central. Let me show you how to create a system restore point for the back to office missions. So this is available under the configurations, script repository. And if you see, I've already added the system restore VBS script to the repository. If you haven't added, you have to go back to templates and search for restore. So this will provide you the VBS script to enable the system restore. So once it's added to the repository, you can deploy this as a computer configuration, and you can define the number of missions. So this can be to the entire domain or specifically for the work from home missions. So once this configuration is deployed, the system restore will be created. We will also be looking at identifying the critical applications to patch, followed by testing them in the test lab, and then we'll be deploying it to the production environment. So let's take a look at the web console on how to achieve these scenarios. So in order to identify the critical applications, you will have to navigate to the patch management section. So go to threats and patches and go to patches. And here you can see the total number of patches that's missing for the entire network. Here you can filter it based on the criticality. For example, if you're looking for a critical update based on the severity, you can use this filter and apply it and get a detailed report on it. You can also see in how many missions these critical patches are missing. You can also add other filters such as patch type. If you're specifically looking for a security update, this can also be filtered based on that. Now, we're going to test these critical updates on the test lab, and we're going to observe the results, which is available under test and approve section. As you know, we're getting hundreds of patches released every month from Microsoft and few other vendors. What we recommend is to deploy these newly released updates to your test missions and observe the behavior. And based on the behavior, you could either approve or decline the patches, for which you will have to create a test lab to deploy all these patches. We have an option called custom groups, through which you can create a group of computers. So we'll just have to name the group. Let's say if it's for my test missions, I'll name it, and I'll choose the missions that you want to test the patches for, and you will create it as a group. Now this group will be the pilot group in which we are going to deploy all the new patches. We can also define what updates has to be tested in this missions. In case you follow a complaints only to do security updates and non-security, so you can customize what has to be tested on these missions. Followed by the deployment policy. Now the deployment policy will allow you to fix a schedule and customize the reboot. We will be discussing about that in the upcoming slides. But remember, every configuration you create is associated with the deployment policy. So you will have to associate the deployment policy for your test missions. Once it is added, you can allow the patches to automatically get approved after 1 or 2 days of time. Reason being, we are going to observe this behavior for a couple of days. And if you happen to see any issues with your test missions, you can decline those patches from the patches section. So that's the main reason why we are testing and approving the patches. And this declining of patches can be done based on a patch or based on a KB number or an application itself. So if you see, I'm selecting a group of missions in which I'm going to decline a particular patch or an application. So if I have added an application, this will ensure that this patch or the application is not deployed to any of those missions that I have selected. So this is how we will test and approve the patches. Let's see what the next scenario is. Feature pack deployment. Desktop Central do support feature pack deployments. So you can directly upgrade the older version of your machines to the latest ones. So the support is still 2.1H2 and 2.1H1. So all the latest versions are supported in Desktop Central. And you can see these patches under the missing section of each computers. So when you get into a machine, you see the total number of available updates where you can find the latest feature pack and you can deploy to the client machines based on your convenience. Deployment based on user availability. The benefit of enabling this report is to understand the pattern of users' active time in a day to plan the patch deployment activity. Let me show you how this report can be exported from Desktop Center. Back to the console again. You just have to navigate to Reports, Power Management Reports, and here you can see System Uptime Report. So with this custom reporting, we have supported the key details like domain name and the remote office details associated with the active user, which will eventually allow the administrator to define the activities of patch deployment. So based on the uptime of the missions, we're recommending you to plan the patch deployment activity. Back to the presentation. Now, we're also going to create a new set of policies for work from home endpoints to allow the users to skip the deployment and use a scheduled reboot policies. So let me show you how to create a deployment policy based on these situations. So as mentioned earlier, every configuration you create is associated with a deployment policy. And you can create n number of deployment policies based on the need. So you just have to get into the patch management section and the threats and patches, go to deployment and go to deployment policies and create a policy. Now here you can define a schedule at what time the deployment should go through. For example, if I'm planning to test my patches on a second week of Saturday and Sunday, you can have the preferred days and weeks selected here. As you know, the second week is when the patches gets released. So if we are planning to do it on the same week, you can go for the preferred week and days on this policy. And a deployment window can also be set. That's between like 9 to 10, for example, or 9 to 11. So during this window, the required patches will be downloaded by the agent, and you can also define that as well. If you want the download to happen only during this window, you can enable the option over here. Otherwise, whenever the agent contacts the server, it can pre-download the updates and store it locally. It also allows you to do some pre-deployment activities. Like you can wake up a computer if it's on a LAN. You can pre-reboot the machines. You can schedule this reboot when this has to be done. And you can also execute a custom script before the deployment. This feature is introduced recently in our product that is available in the latest versions, so that you can execute a script before the deployment, and you can also send out a notification to the end users as well. So this will allow them to skip the deployment if they are busy at the moment. And post the deployment, you can again schedule a reboot. You can either force the reboot to do it immediately, or you can specify a reboot time, and you can also allow the end users to postpone the reboot. Like 4 hours or 6 hours, they can skip the reboot. And if user defined time is selected, the end user himself can decide at what time the reboot has to be done. You can also execute a custom script activity post the deployment. So these are the deployment policy parameters. So once this is created, you will have to allocate it to the respective group of computers. So this is how the screenshots looks like when the end users get a skip reboot notification. So from the drop down, they can choose to skip it for 6 hours or 8 hours, and they can also select the time as well. And they will also be alerted with the time when the machine is going to get rebooted. This is when the end user want to skip the reboot. So you can define an exact time when this has to be done. And also policy for servers, as we discussed earlier, we can also set up a time frame when the deployment should go through, and that's on the deployment window, and we can wake up and deploy the patches as well if the machine is on lambda. This is a screenshot of the force reboot pop-up that appears on the screen. We'll be providing a default timeout of 5 minutes before the force reboot so that the end user can save all the documents that are open. In case if you want to extend the timeout, that is also possible through the deployment policy. Patch management at a glance. So this is independent of WSS. It's a cross-platform patch management application. As you know, it supports platforms like Windows, Mac, Linux, and third-party applications. We can also leverage various features of test and approve and automate patch deployment tasks. We can easily tweak the features to suit the patch management requirements. Filters and reports are available in all the views as well. We have collated some of the frequently asked questions, and we're going to discuss on that. If we have an automate patch deployment activity scheduled for 100 computers, and I choose to have it pre-download patches during the refresh cycle, would all the systems still execute the updates in order, or would all the system updates at the same time, since it should already be downloaded? So the concept is, if we have enabled the agent to pre-download the update, it's downloading all the required patches that's needed for that configuration, and it's stored locally on the client machine. Now, when the deployment window starts, all the machines will just start to focus on the deployment. Thereby, we are reducing the time taken for the download. So the main reason to enable this feature is to initiate the deployment during the scheduled deployment window. Local office machines are now at work from home. And how can I make them contact the desktop central server? As we discussed earlier, if a machine is not on VPN, we need a secure gateway server to establish a communication to the desktop central server. And if they're connected via VPN, this will have communication with the desktop central server without the need of a secure gateway. Do I need to disable Windows updates if I use Windows patches and updates on desktop central? Yes, we recommend you to disable the automatic updates on Windows as well as the other third-party applications so that you can handle all of them in a single console. So Desktop Central will capture the details of the required updates and also the date and time when it was done. So this will help you to get a report from one single console. Is there a way for Desktop Central to download all the necessary patches, then restart only once for the end users? Yes, the agent will scan for the missing patches, deploy them based on a schedule, and it would check for reboot on every update. So once all the patches are installed on the schedule, it executes a reboot as per the policy which we have defined. When I exclude or decline a patch, is this removed from the patch management dashboard? Yes. When you decline a patch, it is not calculated as a missing update for that computer. And let me also show you how to decline a patch. So we have selective exclusions and we have permanent exclusion. Selective exclusion is when if you want to decline a patch from a particular configuration or from a particular task, you go with that method. So that's available under the automate patch deployment. If you're automatically creating a task to deploy the patches, you can, after selecting the patch types, you can exclude a set of applications. Or you can include a set of applications that has to be patched. So this falls under selective exclusion. And if it's permanent exclusion, that's the option that we have discussed earlier. So you just have to get into patches, decline patch, create a group of computers, choose the application that you want to decline, and you can store it so that this will not be deployed to the selected computers at any point of time. These are the two methods that's used for declining an update. Let's take a look at the next question. Our business applications misbehave occasionally, and I suspect that recent patch deployments could be the cause. How can I roll back a patch? So in general, Desktop Central supports rollback for the Microsoft updates. In fact, we have updated the uninstallation support status for every patch. If a vendor has supported the uninstallation or the rollback, the same has been added to the Desktop Central product as well. So you can find that details on the missing patches section, and you can proceed to uninstall it from one computer or from all the computers at the same time. While deploying the patches, I came across the below errors on multiple clients. How do I get this fixed? The reported errors could be due to multiple reasons, as you can see, it's related to Office updates. So we have a detailed troubleshooting article added to the product console. So generally, we'll be adding a KB articles beside the error code when it occurs, and there are some troubleshooting that's mentioned over there. And even after following those instructions, if you're facing any issues, you could very well reach out to a support team for any assistance. Is it possible to disable the end user notification on a single machine? Yes. This is something that you're customizing. When you create a patch deployment configuration for a single machine, you can decide to allow the end users to skip or not. So as we have seen in the deployment policy, you can either enable or disable the user notification so that they can be allowed to skip or proceed with the reboot or patch deployments. How soon are the patches available to me after being released by Microsoft? So as soon as the patches are released, our team will start the testing process to add the checksums, detection logics. So once it's done, the patches will be released in our database, and you can expect the security updates within 12 hours and the rest of the updates within a maximum of 24 hours of time. I could see a difference in patches discovered by Desktop Central against Windows updates. Why? So in case of Windows 7 or 8.1, Server 2008 or 2012 machines, Windows updates does not show you the security only updates. Desktop Central, what it does is it detects the updates from various resources and it would start to report everything as missing. Detects the patches from Windows updates, Microsoft catalog. So there would be some discrepancy between the desktop central and the Windows updates. Our failed patches handled in test and approve. The main reason why we are testing the patches is to see if it's causing any issues or failures in our test machines. So if you have selected automatic approval of patches after testing, remember the patches that are successfully installed in at least one of the machine and have not failed in any machine will only be approved. So ultimately, if a patch has failed in the test group, it's important we focus on resolving it based on the troubleshooting article that's added, because the same might occur in our production machines as well. So if you're able to find the root cause in the test machines and sort them, we can stop such cases happening to our production environment. How can I see what are the patches released in this patch Tuesday cycle? I hope you're aware of the option we saw in the patch management section where we created a filter to see the critical patches. When you get into the missing updates of the console, you have a lot of filters in which release date is one among them. So you can also use the release date section to see the patches released in this month. Or we have also got a separate view called latest patches and the patch management view. Let me also show that as well. You just get into the console, go to threats and patches, and you see the latest patches here. So whatever is released recently, you see there is a recent update on August 25th. So the recent updates will be seen here. Or if you want to use it from the missing section, you have this filter where you can get the release date option here. So this can be done based on a weekly basis or a monthly basis as well. See what the next question is. Some patches have the description of reboot may require. Why is this? So let's say you're installing a security update that updates the DLL and that is loaded in one or more processes that's required by Windows. Now this security update cannot be completed while the DLL is loaded on the client machine. So only after the system is restarted, the patches gets applied. So in such cases, the tag for the patch will be marked as may require. We are in the question and answer session. We have also planned for a live question and answer session. So if you have any questions with what we have seen so far, you can very well raise it on the chat support. So we will be able to answer it.
All right, Bharani, that's a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. And we do have a couple of questions that has come up.
Mm-hmm.
And we should be able to answer it, right, Bharani?
Sure, yes.
Okay, so one of the frequently asked questions that came up on the chat is, not related to patch, but asking for a recording of the session. Yes, recording is available. The place where you have registered, you should be able to take the video as well. And also, once you have attended, you will receive an email from us with the recording link. So you guys will receive the recording of the webinar. That's number one, right? So, and then the first technical question would be, does Desktop Central have updates for HP, Lenovo computer drives? If not, how can I manually upload for Desktop Central for the deployment?
Okay.
Right. One of the, yeah.
Yes, Santosh.
Please go ahead, Barney. Would you like to take the question?
Yes, I think I can take that. So Desktop Central do offer a driver and BIOS support, but we have as a starting stage, what it is, we supported it for network, sound, and video drivers. There is also a list of drivers published in our website, and for BIOS, it's supported only for Dell machines at the moment. And as you know, the developers are working on introducing it for the other vendors as well. We can also share the supported list of drivers and BIOS to the customers who have requested.
Perfect. Perfect. The other question was related to patch repository. So there was a question that said that by default we give them an option of three months. It can remove the patches in the repository that are more than 3 months. But they said if anything could be done if they wanted to be less than that. Would you like to take that question, Barney?
Yes. First thing, we currently have options to remove it only like 3, 6, and 9 months. But the reason why we have kept this is based on the supersedence of patch, and maybe the customers take a couple of months to deploy all those patches so the machine comes into compliance. But if there is a requirement to reduce the duration, then we can check the feasibility with our development team.
Perfect. Adding to that, and if you would like to, even delete the patches manually, no harm in doing that from the repository. Even if we require it for the future, we will re-download those patches. So if you think space is growing high and would like to clear some patches, you are free to do so. Just keep a note with the support team, and they should help you out on that. Right? That's one of the questions that was asked. Is there a link that can tell us all the third-party applications that we patch? So they were asking about what are the different third-party applications that we patch. Barney, is it possible for you to show that link in case?
Sure, yeah. We do have the list of supported applications published. Okay, so here is
So
the
the
link.
list of third-party applications. Yeah.
So we have
So the
separated based on the
URL
operating
probably we can.
as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Barney. And just checking on the other questions. Team, please feel free to post your questions. If you have test and approve enable, what happens with the patches that don't apply to any of the test machines but exist on other machines? That's a very good question. Would you like to take it, Barney?
Yes, Santosh. So that's again, yeah, so a very good question. Actually, the test groups that you create should resemble your production environment. For example, you have server 2016 and 19 machines in your production, and if you're allocating a different operating system in your test machines, obviously that's not going to deploy everything. So the test group that you create must have the same sort of applications that your production has. So you get this accurate results. And then based on that, you can proceed to deploy it on the production. So you need to ensure the machines are on the same architecture with both production and the test machine.
Perfect. Adding to what Barney said, it's always a good practice to choose your test machines from your production environment, or have a couple of machines that replicate your production environment so that the applications will not be missed out. And if the applications are missed out, and yes, those applications will not be tested. So that's the answer. So it's always a good practice to replicate what's there in the production floor. So there is another question that talks about, do we have our cloud application has NAC in it, network access control? Probably I'll answer it.
Sure.
So the network access control right now is available just as a separate tool. It's not added to any of our product at the moment, but it's a separate tool from us that we give, but it's controlled by our agent that we have. So it's an addition at the moment, but soon it will be part of our security suite or security add-ons that's there, network access control. But at the moment, you can have a separate tool that you can use. Okay, there's another question. For auditing purpose, we need to report on patch status for past 12 months. Is there a report available in Desktop Central? Would you like to take that question, Varni?
Yes, Santosh. So as you know, we have predefined reports, and then we have scheduled reports as well. And when you get into the reports category of patch management, this will allow you to schedule the reports for the past 1 week or months or weeks as well. Let me show you those options. So when you schedule a report, you get into the patch report category, and within the criteria, you can define it based on the days or weeks. So whatever was deployed recently, we have added the criteria as deployed date, and this should give you a quarterly report, or you can also fix a custom date as well. And based on this, the report will get generated, and this will be shared to you over the email.
Thank you, Barney. And the other question is, it's again a good question. Is there an option to download and update in the form of EXE or MSI from a third-party vendor and then deploy it through patch management? Would you like to take the question, or shall I answer it?
Yes, Santosh. So I can do it partially. I mean, it's not possible with patch management, because only if the patch is added to our database, then it can recognize the uploaded MSI or EXE, and we can deploy it. But in this case, I guess we have software deployment option through which you can create an MSI or an EXE package and deploy it. Is that feasible, Santosh?
Yes, so we can use the software deployment portion of Desktop Central, and in which we should be able to. If you can click on software deployment for me, Barney.
Sure, let me show those options.
So on software deployment, you can close this one out.
Yeah.
So we have an option to create package. Click on packages, create packages. Yes, perfect. So here you can create package of your own, probably from your third party, whichever that you have. Yes, click on the local computer and upload this package and deploy it to the endpoints or the machines that you want. So we do have the option with Desktop Central. It may not be through patch management, but it does the job for you of uploading the package and deploying it out. Perfect. I'm just looking out for another question.
Sure.
Guys, if in case you have questions, please keep it coming. Probably we'll wait for another couple of minutes and then we will wind up. Okay,
Sure.
is it recommend? One more question, Barney. Is it recommended to reboot systems prior to automated patch deployment?
Okay. Now, in general, if you're doing patch management through Desktop Central, now it is also adding you a status if a machine needs a reboot or not. Now, the situation when it needs a pre-reboot is when, if there are few deployments gone through, and if you haven't rebooted for a longer period of time, then yes, it is recommended to do it. And we're also adding a status on when this machine was last rebooted. If it's not being rebooted for weeks or months, then probably we have to reboot it prior, and then we have to deploy those patches.
Okay, perfect. So, thank you, Barney. So, in general, adding to what Barney said, if you think you want to reboot the machines before you want to do a fresh patching, you can always add it as a pre-deployment policy if you'd like to. Yeah, that can be a good practice if you want to.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of questions coming up. Let's go one by one, Barney.
Mm-hmm.
So can we push the third-party EXEs? Again, the same question. Yes, we can push the third-party EXEs through Desktop Central via software deployment, right? That's number one. And the other question is related to what happens if Windows does not want to patch, how to handle it. I think it's more about patches that are not applicable is what my understanding is for the question. So from the question, what I understand is our detection system will detect only if those patches are applicable for that Windows machine or any operating system for that matter. If it's not applicable for a specific machine, then we will not detect it as missing patches, right? And you
Correct.
cannot push a patch which is not, applicable for a specific machine. I can't push a patch that's a Windows Server patch to a Windows 10 machine. I can't do that. Our detection logic or our product will not allow it. So you don't have to worry about it, right? Or if it's something else, if you would like to rephrase the question, you can post it back. So do we support Linux as well? That's another question, Barney. Would you like to answer?
Yes, I can also show you the list of Linux operating systems that are supported. And like we start from Debian, Ubuntu, Red Hat, SUSE, all that. And we also support security and non-security updates in Linux flavors.
Perfect. One of our participants wanted to, want us to repeat the question number 9.
Mhm.
Barney, if you have the presentation ready, question number 9.
Sure. Okay, so this it's about our release process. So how soon are the patches available in our database after it's being released by Microsoft? So generally, what we do is as soon as the patches are released, we are going through a testing process, like adding checks and values, detection logics, and all that. So, and after these checks are done, we are releasing the updates. We give priority for security updates and zero-day updates if there are any, and that will be released within 12 hours of time. And the rest of the updates, we'll be releasing it in our database at a maximum of within 24 hours of time. So that's our ETA for releasing the updates. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you very much, Barney. Thank you for the answer. I think that's pretty much it. We were able to, get the other answers out for the team. And just one last question, I think. The last question is for what happens, I think, from the question that I understand is how to troubleshoot the errors
Mhm.
when if there is a problem with Windows and if it's not updating, how do I troubleshoot the errors? I think that's the question the participant is asking. Would you like to probably answer the last question?
Yes, Santosh. Now, see, when you deploy a patch, the Windows installer is reverting it with an error code, and every error code will have a different reason why it has failed. Now, with the error codes, what we have analyzed, and we've added some KB articles that explains the root cause of these errors. For example, if you take an error code that ends with like 4329, so this could be because of some corruption in the machine, for which we recommend you to deploy a corruption update. We ourselves have introduced a CBS corruption patch in our product. So when you deploy that patch to the machine, that clears all the corruption in the files. And then when you reboot your machine and redeploy it, there are more chances where the patch deployment will go through. So this troubleshooting has to be done based on what error code we have received. And we have troubleshooting articles for most of the error codes. Trust that would help.
Okay, thank
In case
you.
the user is unable to find any articles, then we can request him to reach out to support for further troubleshooting.
And thank you very much. I think that should be our end of our webinar. I think we have answered almost all the questions. If at all we have left out, probably we'll get in touch with you in person and have our support team help you out. Thank you very much, Barney. Thank you all for patiently listening to our webinar. You guys have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Santosh. And so we also request the end users to rate this webinar on a scale from 1 to 5, where 5 is the best. And if you would like to spread a word about our webinar, please do use the below platforms. We also have next training sessions coming on. So it's about unified endpoint security. It's happening on September 1st. In case if you need a personalized desktop central demonstration, please do reach out to the chat support where they would be able to organize it. And thank you everyone for joining the session on your busy schedule. You guys all have a great day. Thank you.